So this video is oriented to my new hams out there, ones who haven't purchased a HF rig yet, or even ones that do have an HF rig but they would like to test the quality of their signal. And what I'm going to explain to you is a method of decoding HF radio signals, digital radio signals, without a rig or an antenna. So I have a little poorly drawn diagram behind me because as this is for new hams, I want to explain the how and why a little bit before we get started. So with digital modes over ham radio, typically how that works is the data is transferred and comes from your radio through audio cables. The digital part in the data is embodied inside of the audio cables, inside of the audio transfer back and forth. So that's typically why a radio is wired into the sound card of your computer in order to decode and transmit audio, digital radio packet. If you don't have this system here, that won't work for you. So what we're going to do is explain a way that we can get audio from HF radio and funnel it into the computer like we had an HF radio, but we do not. So there is a software we're going to be using called VBAudioCable, and I'm going to explain that real quick. So typically the audio from your radio pipes into the microphone in port on your computer, and your computer has software that listens for that audio and decodes it into digital radio data that you can see with your eyes. So VBAudioCable is a virtual audio cable that takes your computer's speaker output, so what would normally be playing through your speakers, and it creates a fake microphone for your computer. Now it's not a hardware microphone because it doesn't actually exist, but as far as your computer is concerned, it does. So whatever audio is playing to your speaker is instead rerouted right back into a microphone port, theoretically, on your computer. So what we can do is use online services like a webSDR and funnel the audio from the webSDR from our computer right back into our virtual microphone port. And once we set up that microphone port as the listening port on our software, we can use that to decode the digital radio packets. So if you aren't familiar with webSDR, I have a video on it that I'll link below. But basically, it is a HF radio that is set up somewhere dedicated for people on the internet to be able to go on and control. So what we're going to do is install the VBAudioCable software, and then we are going to look for one of these a decent HF radio that is hosted on this website. We're going to play the sound with the correct settings over our virtual audio cable into our software, and we are going to decode the packets that come through. Not only is this used if you don't have the equipment, but say you do have a HF radio and antenna and you'd like to test your signal quality or for any distortion on a digital mode. Well, you can use this software as long as the HF radio dedicated that you're using can hear your signal. You can use the software to pop it back in on another computer and see what your quality looks like. So let's go ahead and move to the computer and get started. So the first thing you're going to do is download the software, and you can find that at vb-audio.com/cable, or I'll provide a link here. And for Windows and for Mac, you just click whatever system you have. It's going to give you a zip file, and then you're going to need to extract it. Once it's extracted, you'll get a folder called VBAudioCable Driver Kit. Open it up, and you're going to see a window like this. Now there's two different applications to install. If you have a 64-bit system, which is most modern computers, you'll use this one. If you have a 32-bit, which are older computers, you will use this file here. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to do that. But what you would do is just double click on it. It goes through the installation process, and once you're finished, you'll need to restart your computer. So once the software is installed, you can verify that it's installed correctly by Windows searching System Sounds and finding this window here. And if you go to recording, you should see a new microphone called VB Audio Virtual Cable. So that is the microphone we are going to be using. The next step is to go to your playback tab and find the VB Audio speakers, and you're going to set this as the default device. And make sure you set up the, well, you don't really need to set up the audio as the default device. You want to make sure your cable input is the default device. This means that whenever we play our sound over a WebSDR, you will be piping that audio to this output, which is linked to this input. So now the next step is to find a decent WebSDR. If you go to webSDR.org, you'll be presented with a list of many SDRs in different locations. Some of these will work better than others depending on the antenna height, but the important part here is you make sure to check that the SDR you're going to use has the requirements for the digital mode you're using. So today, for an example, we are going to be using a WebSDR to decode FT8. So I can either choose the 40 meter band or the 20 meter band, which means I need 7.074 or 14.074. It's still early in the day, so I'm going to find one that has the 20 meter band. There's one here in particular I see that covers 13 to 15 megahertz, so I think this will work well for me. The next step is to open the link. Now, the next tricky part here is all of these use the same software, and sometimes the audio is a little glitchy. So many times you'll have to find a button that says audio start before you can actually start piping the audio out. So once you click on it, typically you'll have to allow or press a button that says allow that allows your computer to start playing the audio. Now, with our default communication device set as our cable input, we won't actually hear the audio over speakers, but as you can see, it's already being piped into the microphone on the virtual audio cable. The next step is going to be tuning into the right frequency. So as we said before, we are using 14.074 to decode FT8. Now, many of these actually have the frequencies labeled, and you can use the scroll bar to adjust. But as you can see at 14.074, you see a nice clean signal on the waterfall. This means that this is probably going to be a good WebSDR to use. So I want to make sure that I'm tuned right on frequency. And the next step is going to be adjust your bandwidth. As you can see down here, my bandwidth is actually at 9.49 kilohertz. It's quite wide for FT8. Usually you want to be between 2.4 to 3 kilohertz. So I'm going to hit narrower until I get down to about 3 kilohertz. And you can actually adjust it with your mouse as well. Now, as you can see, if I'm tuned directly on it and I only have a 3 kilohertz bandwidth, the next step is going to be to choose your correct sideband. So most data modes use USB or upper sideband, so I'll click on that. And for the most part, that zeroed me right down the signal, right where I need to be. You can choose to expand this or move this around as you like, but I'm going to keep it right here for now. So once you have your audio playing, once it's tuned into the right frequency and you have your sound device set and you see a level coming in on your virtual audio cable, you can go ahead and open the software that you'd like to use to decode the signal. I'm going to be doing FT8, so I'll be using WSFT-X. So I'm going to go ahead and open the software. So once the software is open, you want to configure it to make sure that you're using the correct input on the audio. So like I said, we're using the VBAudio virtual cable, so you want to make sure that your input is set to that. We are not transmitting, so it doesn't really matter what we have on the output. Now, as you can see, I've already started to decode signals from this WebSDR. FT8 comes in round, so as you can see, these are actually all of the signals that we are decoding. And we are doing that, we are decoding this on our own computer without a HF radio or rig. So what this means is if you don't have a radio, you can use this software to decode FT8. And if you do have a rig and you only have one and you'd like to test your audio quality, you can easily start transmitting on your own radio on a different PC and see your signal come in on this PC, and you can see the signal quality around the world, and you can also see if you have any distortion or audio issues coming over your signal. You can also use this with modes like SSTV to decode images. All you need to do is just find the right frequency and use the right software and pipe it in, and you'll be on your way to decoding digital software without a rig. So I hope this video kind of helped you out and kind of expanded the possibilities and research that you can do with ham radio. If you're new to ham radio and you're looking to get into it, this is a really cool thing just to get a sneak peek into HF and do a little bit of decoding before you actually get a rig or your license. So if you like the video, please make sure to subscribe. Leave a comment below if you have any tips or any fun things that you've done with VBAudioCable, because there are a lot of different possibilities and there's a lot of stuff to decode out there. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching, and thank you for the support, and 73 to you.